Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of the Moody Gooners podcast, the Arsenal podcast with a difference. I'm joined as ever by my partner in crime, Jason. Jason, nice to see you.
Hello, how's it going?
Yeah, it's been better from an Arsenal perspective, but we'll get into that. How are you?
Yeah, again, I'm with you. It's been better. It feels like a kind of full stop moment for Arsenal this season, but yeah, I'm okay. Keep going.
Well, let's hope this is going to be a bit of therapy. It's certainly been one of the tougher games that we've had to talk about together on this podcast. But for those viewers who have not watched our pods before, welcome. It's great to see you here. And basically, just to sort of again set the scene, this is an Arsenal podcast with a difference. Again, we sort of both massive fans of the club, but what we're trying to do is add a nice tie-in with mental health. So each week we'll be making a prediction on the following game, and for every prediction we get incorrectly, we will be donating £5 or £10 at the end of the season. We'll see how generous we are to our charity of choice, which is Mind. So really, yeah, just an Arsenal podcast with a difference, trying to sort of really connect our love for the club and just really normalising, the discussion around mental health and really giving back to charity. So subscribe, share with your friends. Like to think this is a Arsenal podcast with a bit of a difference. Yeah, so we hope you enjoy the content. But today we're going to be very much reviewing what was a really, really tough defeat against Brighton on Sunday. We're going to be going through that. Obviously, I think we're all in agreement now that if it wasn't done a few weeks ago, it probably is now. So we'll be basically reviewing the game, talking about our thoughts around the team, and trying to have a bit more of an uplifting discussion, I would say, on what we need to do next year to close the gap on the cheats from Manchester, or the alleged cheats from Manchester, and what we can do there. But without further ado, let's jump straight in, Jason. So talk to me about going into the game, how you felt. I think it was quite tough, wasn't it, going in straight off the back of the the City game. I'm half sort of wondering. I'm sure the players were aware of the result, but I'd like to think that they kind of put that to the back of their minds and cracked on. But what were your thoughts and feelings coming into the game?
Well, I mean, we watched the game together for everybody out there, and we were. I can't speak for you as well in this one. We were both kind of deflated and a bit sort of, I guess, defeated, because we were hoping, like every Arsenal fan out there, that there was going to be a little bit more fight from Everton. But it wasn't to be, and City just absolutely rolled them over 3-0. As they've been doing for all their games that they've had in hand, and was it 14 games on the bounce now?
I think they've won 11 in a row, and
11 in a row in the league. I mean, we just can't compete. So feeling beforehand was just like, I mean, that was the one I thought. But sandwiched between the Real Madrid games, they might do something, they might slip up, but wasn't to be. And as you say, maybe that sort of plays in a little bit into how the players feel and approach the game, but you'd like to think it doesn't. I mean, I'm of the opinion that it may have done it ever so slightly, but I also think that, I mean, the general feeling I get about the team and the way that they are right now is that they're just running out of puff. They're just running out of steam a bit, and they just don't quite have that little bit extra to sort of get them over the line. And maybe it comes down to experience, maybe it comes down to depth. We'll go into all of that now, I guess, today. But that's my sort of feeling and how I was before. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, in the last few weeks, I kind of let the league go a little bit. So I've kind of been coming into games just not, fairly relaxed compared, like by my standards. I'm a bit of a worrier. Yeah. Hence the Moody Gooners podcast, the idea that we've had around it. But I kind of in the last few weeks sort of made my peace with the league title, and then thought to myself, right, I'm just going to kind of go in, relax, and sort of enjoy the games, and what will be will be. But then obviously with City having their tough, quite a tough fixture against Real Madrid, and then with Everton wiping the floor with Brighton, I did start to sort of like crank open that door again around sort of like, can we?
Yeah.
And then we didn't watch the City game, but I remember sort of checking the score after half an hour and seeing it was 0-0. I think, okay, they're in for a game here. And then again, very deflated that they scored quick fire goals just before half time. And I think, the one thing City do is they don't drop points from winning games. And what I did catch a tiny bit of the second half at the start, and the atmosphere at Goodison Park certainly wasn't what I was hoping it would be. But to be fair, we can't really be relying on other teams anyway. We need to.
I know we've got to do our own thing.
We've got to do our thing, and it's frustrating relying on other teams, but that's what what we were left with. But pretty gutted.
Nevertheless,
I was also a bit nervous. I had actually a weird feeling that maybe City might drop points, and I also thought maybe we would get a draw or something, because Brighton, we've got a horrendous record against them. I know they lost to Everton the previous week, but they're a bloody good side. I didn't think it was a foregone conclusion, to be honest, but I was kind of caught between this middle ground of, we're not going to win the league this year versus can we? And then that deflation before. But still, I sat there thinking, right, let's just keep them honest to the end of the season. Let's play and let's see what happens. But in the same token, I knew it was not going to be a straightforward game by any stretch. I mean, team news wise, what was it? Sorry, go on.
I was going to say I was, nevertheless, with everything that went on with the City game, I was still expecting an Arsenal win, and given that we got that result up at St James's, and off the back of the Chelsea win, I thought, hey, we've overcome that bit of a hump, so maybe we can sort of start righting a few wrongs, and we were going to put a performance in against Brighton, but it wasn't to be.
as we clearly know. I mean, team news wise, we saw Zinchenko coming in for Tierney. Sorry, Tierney coming in for Zinchenko. That's always great podcasting if I can get the order right. But we saw Zinchenko was reported in the week to have some kind of muscular injury. It's unclear as to whether he's going to be able to take his place in the squad for the remainder of the season. And I know me and you sort of have a differing opinion. I appreciate that Zinchenko's out of form, but when we are at home, I prefer to see Zinchenko just purely from the ability to kind of demand the ball, get onto the ball and start dictating and prompting. Although I have to concede, like he hasn't been in the greatest of form. So that was kind of the only change. Kiwi or Jorginho kept their place, and then for Brighton, Evan Ferguson was quite looking forward to seeing what the fuss was about there. And then Caicedo in at right back, which I thought was interesting there. But what was your sort of overriding thoughts on the team when you saw it coming?
As I expected, really. Kiwior kept his place. They had the clean sheet. He did all right up against Newcastle. Jorginho, he's done really well in the games that he's come in, and done well as that sort of playing that Partey role, although albeit ever so slightly different in what he offers. The Zinchenko thing, I mean, on that, I agree with you. Especially now in hindsight, having watched the game. I've got my famous tagline that, whether we win or we're losing the midfield battle, I think in this game, he would have given us a bit more than Tierney, and he would have added that extra man in midfield with him drifting in. I think with him, I'm not sure if it would have made much of a difference, because I think Brighton played really well. And they probably did, they deserved to win at the end. But yeah, Tierney, I as much as he's all right defensively, I thought he was pretty bang average in this game, to be perfectly honest with you. So, I mean, lineup as expected, really. It was interesting to see Caicedo, though, filling in at right back. I mean, did he start there or did he drift back in? I'm not sure whether they took somebody. I can't remember exactly how it. I kind of trying to blank out the blue.
There. Yeah, I mean, I think they normally have Tariq Lamptey there, and I think he wasn't playing. There is another player that sometimes plays right back, but to be honest with you, I can't
I'm not right for me know that.
But I think we'll come on to him anyway, and in terms of what he can offer, in terms of versatility. I mean, I mean, as you know, I quite rate him, but I think he's shown.
You're very much a Caicedo fan.
I am, yeah, but I think that he showed a level of versatility there, particularly in a position that you have to say, if Tomiyasu's getting regular injuries, that that does something. I think that suddenly elevates him, to be honest, in terms of our transfer strategy in the summer, in my view. Not that I'm in charge of transfers, but let's dive. I mean, shall we open up the Pandora's box of, horrendousness and talk about this first half?
Well, we just didn't get started. It felt,
I mean, talk. What do you mean by? Because the thing I noticed when we watched the games, the pair of us, we had very, very differing views on that first half. Whereas I think second half we're probably a bit more in alignment. But tell me when you say that, tell me what you mean around that.
Well, I don't think there was any cohesion there. There was no sort of, we couldn't string the passes together. It felt like we were rushing, and I know we can take our times sometimes, and like maybe one too many passes and try and do the old cliche of try and score the perfect goal, but we just seemed to be rushing. We weren't up for the fight. Brighton are a quality team. That any team can get beaten in a freak result, like Brighton did last week against Everton. So I don't think we should take that. You've got to take that with a pinch of salt. You can't look at that and go, "Oh, Brighton are off form," because Brighton, they're 6th in the league now. They are a quality team. They run really well. They've got a good coach. The transfer strategy is brilliant. The coaching is fabulous. They are a well-run club, and I think I don't want to say arrogance, but the players, our lot, we didn't show any fight. We didn't show it. It felt like we didn't really turn up. We were losing the 50-50s, the second balls. We weren't really sharp. Now, again, I think this plays into where we are as a squad and how we sort of dipping off at the end of the season now. I just think it's a bridge too far for us. We haven't got the strength in depth, and the players that we have got that have been playing really well, they've been playing week in, week out, and so they naturally they look a bit jaded, a bit tired.
Now, when you say we don't have the strength in depth, I mean, I know we've
quality.
got I know we don't have the strength in depth of City, but I was having a conversation with someone today who was saying that even Brighton had or Newcastle rather, someone at work was saying that, they have a better quality bench than us. But I thought the whole idea, I mean, we were one of the most active sides in the Premier League in January, bringing in 3 players is kind of unheard of. And, I think without Tomiyasu and Saliba's injuries particularly, I actually think our bench is quite good compared to a lot of teams. And that's why I'm a bit gutted we didn't go a little bit deeper into the knockout competitions personally, but I think it is tempered by the fact we do have when you've got Saliba and Tomiyasu out, there's not much wiggle room, and no replacement for Saka. Those are probably the areas. But keen to sort of see what you mean by that.
2 points on that. So one, obviously, the players that are on the bench, they don't like people like Smith Rowe, Nelson. Who else we got on the bench? Vieira. These guys, they haven't had much game time. So expecting them to come off, Nketiah's been out as well. He came on. Expecting them to come on and actually do something, I think it's asking a bit much because they're not really match sharp. And they're a bit, they haven't had that game time. So what I mean by that is that he's put all his eggs in one basket, Arteta, in my view. And he's rotated around maybe 13, 14 players, tops.
I mean, do you think? Because given that we did bring 3 players in January, do you think Arteta's managed the squad well? Because one thing I noticed when he took off Jesus and Odegaard on Sunday, I was sitting there going, well, "Who's gonna?" These are players that even though they put a big shift in games, these are like Odegaard's been like a big game player who's kind of rescued things in the dying stages of games, and I almost feel like bringing on Smith Rowe, we know his qualities; they're unquestioned, but. I also by the same time, I also feel like if you're bringing him in without giving him games before,
I know on him.
Yeah, I just feel like I think a fully fit Smith Rowe had some game time before probably would have made more of an impact coming into this game.
Exactly.
Whereas he's only played Kivior recently. He's only really started using Jorginho in the last 4 or 5 games. So I kind of wonder whether Arteta was just like sticking with his plan A, hoping he could just hold it together. Because when Odegaard and Jesus went off, I actually felt really deflated, to be honest. I think Brighton would have been absolutely buzzing to see those guys going off the pitch, put it that way. And I didn't expect Smith Rowe to actually do anything. It would have been wonderful if he did, but I didn't expect him to do anything.
I think the way that he's managed the squad, Arteta. Look, you got to remember he's a young manager. The squad is very young. They're still learning, and what am I trying to say here? I think it's a natural evolution that we've reached the point that we're at right now, and we just didn't quite have enough to see it over the line, and that comes with him fully trusting those players that he's got on the bench to give them game time to come in and show what they can produce week in, week out, not just 5-10 minutes here and there sort of thing. But I also think, to come to the second point, I think the injuries, and I've said this in previous episodes, the injuries that we've had to key players at key moments in the season, the people that have come in to deputise for them haven't been at the same level. So I think, for me personally, those two points, the fact that he's not really the people that we had to bring on, they weren't quite sharp and they weren't up to speed. And then coupled with the injuries, I mean, I think the Saliba one is a killer. I saw Carragher and Neville, discussing this, and Carragher showed a little thing on Sky Sports where, it was the first half of the season versus the second half of the season with Saliba in or Saliba out stuff. And the points, it was like 2.6 with him, points per game. And then just after the World Cup, it was like 2 points per game, and then as soon as he got injured, it was like 1.7. The drop off was considerable, and that's again, I'm not digging out Rob Holding on this one. He's a standout guy. He seems all right, but the level's too much, and I just think that we haven't got that strength in depth in those positions, and that's where we've fallen short, really.
Yeah, and I do think, I think in 2023 the defending piece can't be put on. I know we're going to relitigate the Rob Holding conversation a bit here, but I think in 2023 the way football is played these days, with that pressing from the front, winning the ball back, it's never like it used to be a bit of a cliche. We defend as a team and we attack as a team, but I actually think defending as a team is actually real now. It used to be a load of old crap in my view, like we win and lose as a team, blah blah blah. But I've noticed there's a drop off in how quickly we turn the ball over high up the pitch. Because of not having Saliba's recovery pace, we all sort of dropped off 5-10 yards as a team. I think Zinchenko's been a bit ropey at the back. The midfield, Partey's been out of form. Jorginho doesn't offer that, that muscle in the middle so much. I think it's probably been 4 or 5 things in my view, that have contributed to that. But
there's one other thing as well that I've picked up as well, reading all the different columns and hearing people's views and stuff. I thought it was quite a valid point. Was there is an argument to be said that the way that we play, we've been found out a little bit, and so I've heard this. I've heard this sort of phrase, sentence bandied about a bit in media at the moment. Is that we don't know how to react to when there's an aggressive high press on us. So if you think like how Brighton played, they pushed and harried us, and they didn't really give us the opportunity. The same thing happened with Southampton. You think of all the mistakes that we made. I know that was the Ramsdale one, but the Southampton players, they pushed high up and very quickly and direct, and it didn't really give us the opportunity to build our play from the back. So I think again, this comes back to the evolution of the team, and I think maybe that next season Arteta needs to come up with a plan B, plan C and stuff, because, for the first half of the season, we were blowing teams away. Second half, we started to get found out a bit, a few injuries here and there, and the players are a bit jaded. And I think it's just haven't had quite enough, really.
I've noticed as well, we stopped playing out from the back as much. I've noticed Ramsdale starting to go a little bit longer. And I've noticed teams as well, when we do start to press. I also think Jesus has actually physically looked like he's fatigued a bit, which is bizarre given how long he was out for. But I think normally the pressing sort of starts with him. But I've noticed teams are actually kind of going, like we saw against Man City, with longer balls into Haaland, and then Kevin De Bruyne spinning off. And I noticed the game on Sunday, he had playing over the press, trying to knock the ball longer into the channels. Matoma up against Ben White gave him a bit of a torrid time there.
He really did.
I'm actually a big fan of direct football, providing it's not like a blind sort of lump up to the big man as it was in the 1990s. But as long as he's got a bit of a longer ball to kind of get the ball up the field and get players around them feeding off, I think that's definitely something we could probably consider, because we do. I think again this links back into the first half. I mean, I felt personally, I don't think we were great. I think both teams are actually decent in the first half. I actually think we were better though, to be honest. When I think about the chances the quality of the chances I mean, the interesting thing is Leicester, Brighton had 6 shots on target. We had 2. But if you look at the kind of opportunity, I think we could have had 6 shots on target in the first half alone if we were not so wasteful in that final third. I mean, we saw Trossard clip the top of the bar with Lewis Dunk sort of getting his foot kind of slightly in the way. We saw Martin Odegaard open his body up. I'm waiting for him to try and just slot the ball into the corner. He takes an extra touch and the chance fizzles out. You've had Jesus was in a great position to reverse it back across the goalie. And then he, for some reason, he dribbles over to the touchline and the angle's too tight and the chance is gone. And then you had Bukayo Saka just dragging, of all the players you wanted that to fall to in the box. And he dragged that shot wide. So in my view, although the stats will say Arsenal only had 2 shots on target at home, we should have had at least 2 or 3 more in that first half. And I personally think we could have, on another day, we could have easily gone in 2-0 up at half time. And then the whole second half becomes a totally different game. I think maybe the pressure started building, the fact we were so wasteful. I mean, what do you make about what I've said there? Because I know we sort of differed a bit on that first half, but also why did we overplay? Like, why are we not taking those first time shots?
Like the Odegaard one, really early on, I think that was where he had that golden opportunity to pull the trigger and he didn't. I know he had another. I think he had another opportunity later in the half where he dragged the shot wide. He does that sort of thing where he picks it up just outside the penalty area. The similar thing that he did against Newcastle, and he dragged it wide. I think personally, I think the first half was quite even. I know we had the better sort of, if you like, half chances.
I think they were real chances. I just think we made them half chances by dilly-dallying on the ball a bit. I think we were right in on goal. I mean, they had that Enciso one that the near post that Ramsdale tipped. But my view is we had 2, 3 or 4 really clear sights of their goal where on another day, even the same Arsenal team earlier in the season, we turned those from chances into half chances by taking an extra touch, taking the ball wide. Saka did the right thing to take his shot on early, but he obviously didn't get a great connection on it. And you have to give a bit of credit to Lewis Dunk for the foot in for the Trossard one. But when I thought back at it, I don't think we blew anyone. But I think we were decent in the first half. I think at the end of the day, the game is about stopping chances at one end and creating them at the other end. Like for me, Brighton only really had 1 chance in that first half. It was a comfortable save in the end. We had 4 or 5.
There was another one. There was the Mitoma one where he got down the left and he took on Ben White on the outside and squared it. Ramsdale tried to save it. He came out on the floor, and then I can't say his name properly. Enciso was leaning back and he hit it over the bar, and it was the goal was open. Yeah. So for me, that was the best chance of the half, because if he just sort of got his body over it, he would have stroked it in, and it would have been 1-0. We did have we had more opportunities, but we weren't clinical enough, and I think. I don't know why. I mean, on another day, I can understand your point whereby, you could have easily gone in a goal up or 2 up or something by that point. But, on the balance of the whole, looking at the game itself, I thought Brighton, their tactics were, they just sort of stifled us, and we didn't really know how to deal with that. And I think it was a very evenly matched first half in my view. I think they had more possession. I think after the first half, so 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, I'd say. So I'm a bit more on the fence with it. I think it was quite even. I mean, they'd shown their versatility and their way of sort of mixing up the play, and they were a bit more adaptable, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So I thought that they had more. There was more opportunity for them to try and create something rather than the way that we sort of create something. So I thought it was all right. I mean, the other sort of, I guess, talking point from the first half was Martinelli. 2 incidents that he was involved in, and I've watched. I mean, you know what I'm talking about here. So the first one was the foul on Mitoma. I've watched it back.
It's very naughty.
Yeah, I've watched it back, and I've got to say, on another day, he could have been sent off for that. He didn't go for the ball, and he's made. I mean, you just said it now. Naughty. It didn't seem that he was trying to be malicious, but his was it his elbow or the top of his arm cracked?
I think he's just led with his arm.
Yeah,
and just
it's cracked into Matoma's head.
Bit of a body shake. Yeah.
If that's flipped the other way around, we'd have been doing on that. We'd have actually been calling for red card, VAR, the lot. But so, I mean, I'm stunned that he didn't even get a booking for that. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then again, moments later, then Martinelli in a bit of retribution. I think it's Caicedo goes in behind him and takes him down. And again, lucky to escape without a card. I mean, the referee, in my view, he's shot himself in the foot. It's just unbelievable.
I noticed with the refereeing, he sort of started off the game being too soft, because at the end of the day, as soon as you challenge a player who's off the ground like Martinelli did, it's really dangerous. So the player could come down and break a leg, break a knee ligament. So for the ref to let that and the Caicedo challenge back on Martinelli off, but then I noticed as the game went on, he started giving free kicks and cards for really quite minor
innocuous
offenses.
Sort of
so it's just really inconsistent.
Poor standard.
Yeah, it was very, very shocking. And I expected that to even the Martinelli one to go to a VAR check for a red and maybe for him to get a yellow. I mean, for me, it was almost like an amber card, whereas I think the Caicedo one was a yellow. It was a definite yellow though. But yeah, I must admit, I didn't think Martinelli had that in him, to be honest, to be like that little bit of sort of filth, if you like. But yeah, it was a naughty one. It was a naughty one. He knew what he was doing. I appreciate at the start of the game you want to let your opponent know you're there and put yourself about, but yeah, it's interesting. I didn't really have that in him. So he's a lucky boy. But in the Caicedo one, we saw Martinelli turn his foot on that. I mean, without knowing what the scans look like in the training ground, I'd be surprised if he plays in the last two games, because it looked like he sort of bent his foot sideways a bit and backwards. I wouldn't be surprised if he'd had some kind of ligament damage. But it's a shame because he's our most in-form attacker at the moment, along with Odegaard, I'd say. So, yeah, bizarre performance by the ref. And then the second half, we saw that thing where the lino flagged for an offside off a throw on.
Off a throw in, yeah.
And then quickly rescinded it. Again,
what's Howard Webb thinking? What is Howard Webb thinking when he sees these? When he reviews the performance of the officials at the weekends? It's just the standards are just. I mean, I get it for there's always going to be mistakes with officiating, but some of the decisions that have happened. I mean, I'm going to be quite general here with this point, but some of the decisions that have happened over the course of the season. And not just with relating to Arsenal, obvious ones that stand out, the Tony offside as well. But there's been some glaring mistakes that have been made by officials over the course of the season. So it's something they've got to look into, because you can't just keep making these mistakes. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, at a very high level, I've got no problem with VAR, providing it's done quickly.
If it's done,
because at the end of the day, I want the right decision to be made and it to be done in as quick a way as it possibly can. However, my problem is it still has human human interaction. At the end of the day, if they don't know the rules, then I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. But let's jump into the second half. And I mean, again, in my view, we were decent enough in the first half without setting the world alight. But second half, wow! I mean, how passive and toothless were we? I mean, where do you think that came from? Did you see that coming? I mean, I certainly didn't.
I mean,
sort of blew my mind, really.
Yeah, I was stunned. I was genuinely stunned. I mean, I thought they'd have gone in at half time, and Mikel would have I wouldn't have thought he would have gone berserk at them, but he just would have sort of sat them down and gone, look, guys, come on, you need to just up the tempo. There's no sort of there was no sort of real desire. They looked lethargic and leggy. There was no decisiveness, and there was no creativity. It seemed very sort of, as you say, passive and pedestrian. It was, and you're playing Brighton. You can't do that against Brighton. You're not going to get the result or the outcome that you want from a game if you're going to behave like that. individual.
What do you put it down to then? Oh, sorry, you're about to get onto that individual.
Yeah, like individual errors started to creep in, passes going astray, and not winning the tackles. I mean, I put it down to, what I said at the beginning. I just think that the players, they just look a bit jaded now. I think the season has taken its toll, which is not great because, if you think of the competitions that we've gone out of, we went out of the fourth round of the FA Cup. Was it the third round of the Carabao Cup? So we haven't really had much of a cup run this year. I know we got to the was it the quarters or the last 16? I think I can't remember now of the Europa. So really, we've only been in the league properly, and don't forget we came top of the group in the Europa League, so we got the bye for that first knockout round. So it's a little bit surprising, but I just think maybe the pressure's got. I don't want to say the pressure's got to him because I don't think it has. I just think that they just haven't had enough in the tank, really.
Yeah, I mean, I put it down a little bit to some, the injuries that I think has totally changed the way that we played, and I think when you have a combination of injuries with other players that we've brought in that we've not bedded in properly or given enough game time, that actually creates the drop off. Because if like, I mean, we spoke about it earlier on. If Smith Rowe had played, let's say if he's been getting 20 minutes, half an hour in the last 5 games in a row, you're a lot more confident he can come in and be that difference maker. I mean, it's an easy thing to say at the moment, oh, Arsenal don't have the strength and depth. But last season, Smith Rowe was I think he was our joint top scorer or our top scorer. So he's got it in his ability to do it. But at the end of the day, if you don't give someone the game time, I mean, he's been medically fit for months on end now and had no game time whatsoever. So, I don't want to give Arteta too much shit because he's done a wonderful job unifying the club, style of play, the recruitment, the whole thing's been wonderful. But no one's perfect at the end of the day, and I do just wonder if Arteta's going to look back and go, could I have managed the players I had at my disposal just that little bit better? That's kind of where I'm at with it. But hopefully, I mean, I think we used the disappointment last season for that fire in the belly. Aaron Ramsdale's spoken about that to get us back in the Champions League, and I'm hoping we can do the same next season to maybe go take that final step. Hopefully, by then City will be in the Championship, and we'll be romping. Tottenham will be getting relegated, and we'll be romping.
Some of those charges will stick, hopefully.
Chelsea will have a 15-year transfer ban, particularly they'll go and buy Osimhen and Declan Rice in the summer. And not without any European football, and then they'll be screwed. Keeping fingers crossed. But hopefully, that fire in the belly will keep us going for next season.
The goals. I mean, we're going to have to talk about them, unfortunately. But first one, the Enciso one. So nice sort of build-up play from Brighton down the left-hand side. I just thought it was way too easy. Bad defending. I mean, I know there was a hint of a foul maybe on Kivior, but I mean, they teach you this in school. I mean, if he's genuinely like hurt, like he's got to go down like a sack of spuds, not sort of like try and hold the back of his boot or something like it's come loose or something. Because if he's standing up there, that ball doesn't reach Enciso.
He's one of the shortest players on the pitch.
Exactly.
Who heads it in.
So I got to say, unfortunately, Kivior's at fault for that, because VAR would have looked at it and gone, if there was much of a foul there, then it would have been given.
Yeah, I have to admit, I was kind of, when we watched the game, I was focusing a bit more on did Evan Ferguson stamp down on Kivior's foot. And I think, but the way I look at it is if Kivior just played to the whistle, even if he had to try and head the ball away in his socks or whatever, because I think one of his boots came off, if the ball did end up in the back of the net, which again I don't think it necessarily would. I mean, Enciso's 5'6". He's not a tall man, and Kivior, if he stayed on his feet and let's say for example he missed it and then he nodded it into the net, I'm sure they'd be VAR dictates that when there's a goal, they do check it for stuff. It's goals, red cards, and things like that they check. Yeah. So they would have looked for so Kivior should have let VAR do its bit in the back end, but you've got to stay on your feet. And it's a shame. So I was actually watching him in the games. I've been I watched a bit of him for Spezia when he was there, and I like the recruitment, to be honest. I thought it was really shrewd business. And the last few games, I feel like he's slowly getting better and better. His distribution is good. He's got quite big pace for a big guy. And I've started liking what I've seen, but I just think this is such a bad mark on his Arsenal career so far, because he wasn't hurt enough to kind of go down, in my view. I think even if you got a one boot on and one boot off, just stay on your feet, nod their ball out, and it's 0-0 still.
What he's got to do is stand up, because the ball. I mean, the cross was sort of bounced in, and it just sort of. It's just frustrating to see us concede a goal. I mean, all 3 goals that we conceded were all, in my view, of our own creation. I mean, Tierney got the first cross for the first goal. He managed to get it away, and then it was a sort of rebounded cross, but Kivio's at fault. And then, I mean, which we move on to the second goal, which was just calamitous.
Do we have to? Yeah,
it was just calamitous.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's one of those ones, isn't it? I mean, it's that risk and reward thing. I mean, Trossard tries to flick it around the corner. Gary Neville, with his wonderful commentary, immediately bleated out offside. And then you watch it and you go, there's like 2 Arsenal players playing him about 10 yards onside. And to be fair, for Undav, it was a great finish, lobbing the keeper. But again, to your point, it was all of our own making. And I think Trossard found himself in a sort of a slightly unnatural position, sort of 30 yards from goal, and try to flip the ball around the corner. But
it's the wrong time to do it. I mean, the decision making there, you've got to question the decision making, because it's the similar. It reminded me of the Ramsdale, muck up that he had against Southampton, where he played it out to a pass that possibly wasn't there, and you can't be playing around with this. It's what is it, 86 minutes or so into the game? You're chasing an equaliser, and you're trying to play risky passes, and you're already looking a bit tired. You've got to play the safe pass in these instances. You can't take risks like that, because you're just going to get found out, especially against a team like Brighton, who are already pressing you high. If you haven't learnt your lesson for the first 80 odd minutes, surely, Anyway, so that was just a calamity, and just awful. I mean, sandwiched between this and then the sort of the third goal, there were a couple of chances. I think Nelson, he had a shot that fizzed wide, but he was pretty uneventful when he came on. In fact, all of the subs, in my view, made minimal impact when they came on. Yeah, you look, Nelson, apart from that shot, I think Trossard looked a bit off it, apart from maybe the shot he had in the first half. Smith Rowe, he looked like he hadn't played much, which is exactly what his situation is.
Yeah. That is the Smith Rowe story at the minute. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, what was your take on the substitutions then? Because I mean, I did feel I know we sort of loosely covered it a bit at the start, but I did feel really deflated when Odegaard and Jesus went off at the same time. I mean, to be honest, I kind of understood what Arteta was doing when he brought on Partey and Nelson. So we were kind of moving from like a 2-man midfield, almost like a pivot. I know Xhaka moves on a bit, but moving to like the 1-man Thomas Partey show in midfield again. So I wasn't actually that against that, because I thought, well, at least we'll have more players in the final third trying to create chances. But for me, the Odegaard and Jesus one, I'm keen to pick your brains on that, because that to me was...
Well, the problem is that
not great.
We made those subs, but we were still trying to play the same way as if we had that 3-man midfield there. And we weren't sort of going long and direct. And if if you take somebody out of that midfield, the game has already panned out in such a way that Brighton have pressed us so much, and they've won the midfield battle, and yet we're still trying to play out from the back through the middle and go with it. And if you're going to do that with like a 2-man midfield or something, you've got to sort of sometimes bypass that and get it to the wide players quicker. And we didn't do that, in my view. I think we just tried to sort of play it out from the back in the middle and then get it. There were too many steps to it. It should have been a bit more direct, I think, if we're going to do that.
Same in the first half for me as well. I mean, except with the first half, we did actually kind of get ourselves into some positions to test the keeper out. Who, to be honest, I think Brighton looked a little bit shaky at the back when they were trying to pass the ball out. Jason Steele
they don't look
great, but we didn't test them enough from our pressing. Yeah. The pressing just wasn't there, and I think had we pressed like we did earlier in the season, we may have got some joy. So I think they were good passing out from the back, but there was a few times where I thought, oh, he's taken a bit of a ropey touch on that, and maybe we could have tested him. I've got to ask you about something else as well. Before we get to their third goal, we don't even really need to feel the pain again, but fans leaving the ground, what's your sort of take on that? Because I understand that fans pay their money. It's their right to not even show up if they want, but for me, I'm trying to. The thing that I do feel quite unfortunate about is the play. I'm thinking if I was one of the players out there, and
I'd feel dejected. You'd feel really like, because let's. I think if we look at the season as a whole, we've exceeded our expectations from when we started the season. The key objective was to get to Champions League. We've done that. We did that a few weeks back. We've ticked that box. We're now guaranteed second spot. The problem is that, like a lot of fans, and I'm not digging out our fans here, but we can be quite short-sighted sometimes. I think we can't lose sight of the fact that our players have given us a fabulous performance. If you look at the season as a whole, take away the last few, 5-6 weeks or whatever. If you look at the season as a whole, our players have given us a lot to be hopeful for going forward. If it were me, I would have stayed to the very end. I may have tried to go out after the third goal, but I wouldn't have been leaving, when the second goal went in. It smacks as a little bit of disrespect, I think, in my view, to the players for given what they've given us over the course of the season.
To me, it sends a message to the players. It says, we don't believe you can come back from this at 2-0 down with 10 minutes to go. And actually, we did it against Bournemouth. We came back from 2-0 down, and at that point, I don't think we're going to. I think most fans probably thought, well, we're not going to get a win here, therefore we're not going to win the league, which I kind of get. And again, I don't want to be seen to be digging out the Arsenal fans, but I just think you expect fans to leave as you get close to the end of the game, but it was like a bit of a mass exodus there. And I do think as well, a lot of it's a bit overblown, because whenever the fans have stayed, I've watched games this season and been at games myself where the fans have actually stayed for half an hour after the end of the game to celebrate and enjoy the moment with the staff and each other as well. So it's funny how the media are so negative and just pick up the moment when the fans do leave. But saying that, I do think we should have. I do that. The mass exodus, it doesn't send a great message out to the players. It shows like a bit of a lack of faith maybe in them. But saying that, I think for the Wolves game there'll be a big celebration of thanks guys, what played really well this season, and things like that. But the third goal was obviously the hammer blow. Estupinian heads in, a rebounded save that Ramsdale made from Undav, and it's game over, season over really at that point. And the thing I did want to sort of ask you about as well is, normally when teams lose games, they tend to lose 1-0, 2-1, or they might come up against a team that absolutely blows your mind and maybe you lose by 2 or more goals. But I do notice it's a bit of a trend for Arsenal in the way we lose games. I mean, I think any other team, had they lost to Brighton the other day, they wouldn't have lost 3-0. So I did kind of walk away with that slightly embarrassing feeling of, God, 3-0. That's like it's a bit of a drubbing, to be honest. And I think we were awful second half. They were better than us second half, but I don't necessarily think it was a 3-0 result, in my opinion. So what do you make about the way we lose games?
I think it's a reflection of the inconsistency, perhaps, of our performances over the last 5 to 6 weeks. Last weekend we went up to St James's Park and beat Newcastle 2-0, clean sheet, played fabulous. Probably one of the best performances of the season. Next week, come back home, and then we lose 3-0. And in my view, Brighton fully deserved their win. 3-0, maybe a bit harsh. They could have been happier with 2. But if you're going to play like that, you're always open to situations like this. And I'm not reading too much into the fact that it's 3. I mean, whether it's 2 or 3, Brighton deserved their win. They played better than us. They were hungrier. The fact that it was 3 rather than, say, 2 or 1-0, we can't say that we deserved it. So for me, it's neither here nor there. I'm not going to read too much into it. I just think we have to dust ourselves off and move on, But I mean, it's all done now. It's all done and dusted. I think after the Man City game, I thought, I think you and I sort of, bugger, it's kind of done. But yeah, just feeling a bit flat about it, really. I mean, yeah, and anything else from you on this one?
No, I mean, like I say, I think I thought it was sort of not mathematically done, but I think the way that we played Chelsea off the park at home and then got that really, really unexpected great, obviously we rode our luck a bit at the start of each half, but to go up to St James's Park, keep a clean sheet, start thinking like that was a statement win. So to go from a statement win to what ended up looking a bit like a mental capitulation, that was the most surprising thing for me. But if you'd even asked me after the Newcastle game, will we win the league? I would have. I even think I did say to you that it's a no, but I felt immense proud of the way the players fought and put it all in, and that drop off in the second half was a worry. But all we've got to do now is just, again, we said it before, but let's go into the end of the season with a little bit of momentum again, and and start the rebuild in the summer. I mean, I might quickly touch on what I did notice after the game is Mikel Arteta's post-match press conference. I think I mean, it's been easy to praise the players, I guess, when we've been playing to such a consistently high level and winning games. But what did you make of Arteta's post? It was the first time where he kind of the tiger had got out of the cage, if you like, a little bit, and he kind of he sort of shown some frustration publicly in the press. I mean, in case you haven't read it, I might just read quickly what he said. But he said if a team is capable of doing that when it comes to the biggest stage, then there's a lot of things to analyse and think about, because it cannot happen. You have to do a lot of good things, incredible things, to be second in this league, and we've done that. But if the team can show that face as well, i.e. the poor second half and performance and going down, there are things that have to be addressed. What's your sort of reading into that? I mean, I do like the fact Arteta's quite brutally honest, but do you think that's going to have any kind of negative impact on the players, or is he kind of almost thinking into next season a little bit?
I don't
what
think
did you make of the comments?
I don't think it's going to have a negative impact on the players. I think the players need to, we win and lose together as a team, and I think the players have to accept responsibility. It can't. I do not subscribe for 1 minute that it's always on the manager and it's the manager's fault in these situations. When I hate it when managers come out and say, "Oh, it's my fault. I take responsibility for this." No. You can give the best tactics, the best team talks, the best, setup, ideas and this, that, and the other. But the players are the ones that have to go out and execute that. If the players don't show up, it doesn't matter what coach you are, who you are. I've seen Pep Guardiola get smashed before as a manager. It doesn't matter. It's down to the players at the end of the day, and it's the players' mentality. That's not me questioning Arsenal players' mentality on the whole, but for this specific game, they just didn't seem to turn up. They ran out of ideas. They didn't know how to combat Brighton's way of playing, and Brighton with their quality, I think they got the better of us.
They certainly did. I mean, they were deserved winners in the end, and credit to them, and De Zerbi's doing a great job. They're a well-run club from top to bottom, recruitment-wise. I actually heard on another podcast today, someone was saying, they've got 5 or 6 really good players that will be playing for top Premier League clubs in the next few years. Well, why don't they just all play at Brighton then, and then Brighton can get better and they add more to it? I mean, it does kind of make me think, if they keep some of these players together and add to it, why couldn't they go for Champions League next season? I mean, Chelsea are going to be struggling for a few years. Tottenham need a complete rebuild. Liverpool have got work to do. Who knows? And the Premier League, I think, is kind of, City are boringly predictable, but anything underneath that, I think, is kind of almost a little bit up for grabs. So fair play to them. They deserved it. I mean, I think before we wrap up, do we want to go into something a bit more positive? Let's talk for a few minutes about next season. I saw today where Xhaka has been linked with a £13 million move to to Germany. Apparently, his wife would rather live in Leverkusen than live in Islington, which blows my mind. But because apparently she's driving, she wants to return back to Germany. Obviously he played for Mönchengladbach before, but he looks like he might be well on his way. And thoughts around that, and just thoughts about what we need to do in the summer to compete next season. Well, I'm quite excited about the summer. I mean, first time since 2016-17 we've had Champions League football. I think the project's really compelling. I think anyone from the outside looking, I think Arsenal must be one of the top 2 or 3 clubs in Europe to be joining at the moment. I don't say that lightly.
I think
agree. Everything about it just reeks of well run, got a really solid plan in place, great location in London, lifestyle you get to live. The money, the Champions League money is going to be there. We've got a really good baseline of young players and some quality players to build around. So your thoughts on Xhaka, and then what you think. So how you see the summer window going.
First thing I say, credit to Xhaka's wife. Germany is a wonderful place to live. I've lived there myself, not in Leverkusen, but in Munich. And so, if he goes, I think I'm a little bit surprised that he might go. I'm surprised by the price tag as well. I think it's a bit cheap, especially after he's had probably his best season for us, in my opinion. I understand that he's 30, but he's shown that he's got legs on him and that he can sort of be this sort of marauding midfielder and get forward and assist and get involved, much like he does for the Swiss national team. So I'm a bit surprised because I think that we're going to need some depth. But on the flip side of him going, I mean, if he does go to someone like Leverkusen, maybe we use that relationship to maybe bring in someone like a Moussa Diaby, that flying winger that they've got on their books. I know that Xabi Alonso and Mikel Arteta are tight, so maybe there's a bit of a deal to be done there. Perhaps maybe later in the window. Who knows?
That's a good call, actually, about the Moussa Diaby link, because I think we do need someone in that right-hand side forward player to, I'm not saying Bukayo Saka should sit on the bench forever, but I do think he's benefiting at the moment from being undroppable. Yeah. And his level has gone up, and you always need to keep people on your. I mean, I always use the example that Hector Bellerin didn't have anyone challenging his position for years on end, and that's probably why he would probably say, I wasn't challenged my level, I didn't reach my potential, partly through injury, but partly through not having someone to keep me on my toes enough. And I think it's crucial we do a bit of business on that right hand side. But thoughts on the potential incomings.
Incomings. I mean, to touch on your point of how sort of how appealing we'll be as a club, I'm totally with you. I mean, if you think around, let's just exclude Manchester City for a moment in this argument. If you take Manchester City out of the equation, because they are the sort of benchmark for the Premier League. If you look at all the other sort of top clubs around Europe, I don't think there's anybody in Italy that is more appealing than us. I also don't think there's it Paris. I mean, maybe they've got to do a whole rebuild and stuff for their, Messi's going to go, Neymar maybe going, where's Mbappe going to go? I think really Barcelona have got no money. They can't really sign anybody. I mean, there's rumors of Aubameyang going back to Barcelona. So, good luck there. I think apart from maybe Real Madrid, I could see us being in the top 3 or 4. If we come sniffing, why on earth not? If you sort of bring it back a bit more closer to home, I think really we're, if you look at the sort of stature of the club that we are and the size, we're probably competing with Manchester United, I think, for a lot of players. I think you can exclude Newcastle a bit from our sort of target of player. I think they're still shopping in a window below us. So I think we are probably 3rd, 4th on the list. So, the players that, if we are going to get rid of a Xhaka, then that to me says that we're going to bring in 2 centre mids. And the names, the obvious ones, the Caicedo link and Declan, the general, that now that he shall be called. So for me, it's those 2. A centre back is an absolute must. I think the 2 midfielders and a centre back for me, and then I think we need another option up front. I love Gabriel Jesus and I love what he does and what he offers, but I think we need an alternative. I would love for us to go out and find Olivier Giroud 0.20. Just that sort of tall, player that can hold up the ball, use his body well, and just gives you that different option. Can you imagine, like, if you're sort of in a Champions League game, maybe a quarterfinal or something, you need to get an extra goal or something, you chuck on Olivier Giroud and then you keep on Jesus and you let Jesus play off him or something. And then Jesus can have that sort of free. I just think it would work wonders. But we just don't have that type of player. And I think
the Times was reporting today that apparently we're going to be going for Caicedo and Rice.
I think we will as well. I think,
which is interesting. So all the talk before has been one or the other, and stylistically they're both different from each other, and in terms of what they bring. I mean, Declan Rice's ball recoveries are unparalleled for anyone in his position in the Premier League, and I think we saw with Caicedo. I mean, what was your sort of thoughts on Caicedo at right back? Because for me, Tomiyasu looks super injury prone, and he looked capable of playing a couple of games there. And then maybe you don't need to buy a centre half because you've got Ben White can push into the middle of whoever problem there. So.
I mean, I think the versatility is obviously a plus point, but I was really impressed by his athleticism. That guy he's so powerful, such a strong runner, and he's so combative, and you feel really sort of assured, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He's not like fumbling around in the middle of the field. He's really a top player. But I mean, for those two players, we're looking 170 million maybe for both, probably. So I think there's going to be quite a lot of outgoings as well. I mean, if we're given 200, we're going to have to top it up as well.
I think every year the pair of us, we sit down, don't we? We work through our squad players who we're going to get money for, and we end up. Well, certainly, I remember a couple of years ago we were talking about all these players, and we could get 100 and something million for them, and we ended up getting next to nothing. But I do feel like this is probably the first summer probably since the late noughties, I would say, where we actually have players who other clubs will want to buy and give us money for. So I think I'm hopeful we'll do 200 mil in just actual incomings, but then top that up with maybe another 60, 70, 80 on top. That's kind of my hope. And my only worry, actually, this isn't. I honestly don't want to sound like it's me being negative about people at the club, but the one thing we haven't shown the ability to do yet, we've been good at signing players around that 20, 30, 40, 50 mil range, but we haven't really been able to get anything over the line that's like a really high profile. We seem to kind of get a bit nervy when we're up against there's a bidding war, and the player is around that kind of 70, 80, 90 million mark. So I actually want to see that we are able to bring, and again, it's not necessarily the money, but those more high profile players that other clubs are after. If we can, I need to be proved to as a fan that we have the ability to do that business. And because Declan Rice, Man United are talking about sniffing around quite where Chelsea are going to find the money from. They're going to be sniffing around. So I think we need to, and it seems like we've been lining it up for months on end, but then we did with Mudryk and that fell on its face. So I think we need to, I want to see Arsenal being a bit more decisive.
Yeah, I think they need to strike while the iron's hot. I mean, I read today that David Moyes has come out and said West Ham are not going to discuss Declan Rice until the end of the season. To me, that tells you that they've got inquiries coming left, right, and centre. And I think Arsenal, Edu, and the rest of the guys there, they need to move quickly. The moment that Declan lifts that Conference League trophy, you get on the blower to David and go, look, here's 90 mil. Take it. See you. Thank you. Good night.
Well, I reckon we'll probably offer 45 plus add-ons. That's
you can't be faffing around with this bullshit.
We got to get in there. Yeah,
just get it done. Get it over the line. The guy's worth it. He's very young. Was he 23, going on 24? I mean, the guy's a resale value. He's in the England squad. Probably a vice captain or captaincy coming up for the England team. Just get it done. Get it done.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm excited. I think, we're all feeling a bit shell shocked and sort of flat, probably. But I'm looking forward to the next iteration of this Arsenal squad. I think we have to embrace the fact that players are going to move out. We've got to move on, because I think you can't get too attached to players. You've got to be ruthless, and I think Arteta does have that. He knows that his job depends on it by not being, if he's not ruthless enough. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how we evolve the personnel. And I don't believe in signing players for depth either. I don't know what you think, but I think signing players who you want in your first 11 is key, because then if they don't get in, or maybe you push a quality player onto the bench. I don't think you buy players to sit on the bench. I think that's maybe where we've done that a bit with people like Fabio Vieira and Kivior and things like that. But I want us to buy first 11 ready players and then have the existing players really fighting. I think there's an obvious gap in that central midfield in terms of the age and fitness levels of Jorginho and Partey. But outside of that, I think it's open season really. And it sounds quite brutal, but I love these players we've got. But my main aim is seeing the club successful, and I actually don't care if we've got Mr. Blobby up front knocking them in. Like, it really doesn't bother me whatsoever. But yeah, exciting times to come, and I just hope Arsenal can get some of these big chess pieces in, because I think we've got to strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, exciting times. So keep the faith, Gooners.
Yeah,
it's not. It's a tough few days, but the macro story around all of this is we have made massive steps, and we continue to be a club that's on the rise. And all the underlying optics are that it's going to continue for at least 2 or 3 seasons. So let's enjoy this ride and let's go on it together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Let's go into bold predictions. I think you've kept up your run of
Jesus.
Our Mind charity are going to love the money that's going to flow into their account at the end of this month. But we both got them wrong at the weekend. I had Gabriel Jesus to score and Saka to have an assist. I'm trying to use my Jedi mind trick to get Saka back in amongst the goal involvements, and then you had Arsenal to win at least one goal, with at least one goal coming from Gabriel Jesus, which didn't happen, unfortunately. So my prediction for this week is that Trossard will get a goal or an assist. I think he's going to start. I think Saka's looking fatigued now. I've done a 180 on Saka. He's out. He's on the bench now for me. And I think Trossard might do all right against Nottingham Forest. What's your prediction? You didn't pre-prepare this one, did you?
I know I didn't. I'm tempted to say draw.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a draw. I can't. I think we'll win the last game at home to Wolves, but I think we'll get a draw against Forest. I think Forest will push us a bit. I can't remember exactly where they are. They're a little bit outside of the battle, but they are sort of involved a bit in the relegation. So I think they need another point, possibly.
Yeah, they had that. They had that good result at Stamford Bridge at the weekend, sort of helping them out. So I think
2-2, wasn't it?
Yeah, they're not looking too bad. So let's see. Let's see what happens there. But
I'm gonna go draw.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Let's see how we need to get some success on this at some point. So let's keep everything crossed.
I'm gonna stop being optimistic and go for a draw.
Great. Well, I think that's it for today. Thanks, Gooners, for joining us again. Like, subscribe. It's been great setting up this podcast in the last few months. Plenty more to come. We are going to sort of look at expanding into transfer stories and giving you some content over the summer months as well. But we'll join you all again after the game at the City Ground. Who knows what's going to happen there? But keep fingers crossed we can get back on a winning tip.
All right. Catch you later, guys. Have fun.
Bye, Gooners. Bye, Moody Gooners. Bye.
Bye.